Welcome to Spurs Vision TV. Right. Of course, I gotta say it. Of course, to all the people who are breaking fast around Asia. Right. Ramadan Mubarak. Right. Hope you all have a good breaking fast call session. Right. And of course, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all you guys around the world. We've got Jordan from Jamaica. We have Mani from India, and we've got Tenditum in Spain, right? And of course, me and Chang, we are from Malaysia. That's a good one, right? That's a good show. All right, guys. Today, since it's the international break, right? I didn't know what show to do, so I mean, since we're gonna do a show, I was thinking of something about since the next 10 games that Spurs got to play, right? We got to play Liverpool, we got to play Arsenal, and of course we're going to play Newcastle. But of course, the more crucial part is that we're going to be the kingmakers for Arsenal and Liverpool. Let's see what happens there. Newcastle, let's see what happens there too. But 10 is about, I mean, he's running short for time. So why don't we just go and do a quick roundup of the previous games that went through. Hold on, let me bring on one more guest. If I'm not mistaken, it's Arthur. Big up, Arthur.
Big up.
Hey, Arthur. Right, Arthur, I'm not sure you met Jordan. Jordan is a Liverpool fan. I'm sure you met Mani. I'm sure you met Ted.
Yep.
Right. I'm sure you all guys met each other before. And of course, we got one representative from the United Kingdom. Truly international, right? Spurs Ration is always truly international. Guys, we'll go through this quickly because 10 is, he's got a date to go to or something like that, right?
No, it's just nice weather out today.
So he wants to walk around this time. All right, guys, Fulham 3, Spurs 0. Being Spurs fans, we were disappointed. We were blah, 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 overreacting, blah, 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 yakety yak, blah, blah, blah. Guys, to tell the truth, right, I come to the conclusion. I think why our midfield failed in the Fulham game, right? Funny feeling, right? Sumer and Pape were fasting because it's the month of Ramadan. I'm not making this an excuse, right? So, but maybe they were a bit under. That's why we lost the midfield and the connection wasn't there. I'm not sure nobody said this, throughout. I've been putting it in the chat. Guys, Pape Matar and Bissouma, they've been fasting. Maybe they've been playing while they're fasting. Maybe while you're fasting and then you can't get that gear into system, right? And that was the problem. That's why we were so bad against Fulham. And to tell the truth, Bissouma was starting to show signs that he was the old Bissouma in the Aston Villa game. He was bossing the midfield there. But all of a sudden, why in the Fulham game, right? He disappeared. Pape Matar, he was bossing the Aston Villa game too. And all of a sudden, he disappeared during the Fulham game. But guys, I mean, I'm not making an excuse for the guys, right? Even if you're fasting, I mean, there are certain levels that you have to maintain the football. If you can't do it, you should let your coach know and, shouldn't be playing. Or maybe shouldn't be playing as a starter, right? That's my opinion. I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard a lot from Chang too. We did the watch along, right? It was a disappointing thing. Let me get to Arthur. Arthur, since you're the elder statesman of the Spurs community here, let me know what were your thoughts and what were your feelings. Were our fan base overreacting, or is this just PTSD? That's what I'm going to say.
Watching the game, I felt that it wasn't just the midfield; it was everybody. Nobody was firing the same way they were in the previous Aston Villa game. And to me, it looked like they'd all been out for a good drink up the night before. They were wasted, I think they call it. And I think, and I also think that was mixed partially with the feeling that because they whacked Aston Villa 4-0 on their own ground, they had this right. They were too cocky, and they never really got going. Fulham came out the traps very, very fast and kept the pressure up all the way through the game, and we couldn't seem to find our level. And at the end of the day, if the midfield was down to fasting, we all know that food and drink is the fuel of life. So if you don't eat, you don't drink, you're going to be low on fuel, hence the performance. But my real feeling is, I think they felt they were going to walk through this game, and it just didn't happen. Fulham gave them the surprise of their life, And well done, Fulham.
Yeah, well done to Fulham. And Chang, your thoughts before I go to the neutral fans?
The match isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. Yes, the midfield was left wanting. Yes, the midfield was totally transparent and translucent, like they weren't even there on the day. They tried to make an effort, but the way I watched it with you and Jose and Colin, and I believe it was there was one other person with us,
Ashley.
Ash, and there was also another guy with us. It was not just Ash. Oh my goodness. Anyway, whatever it was, that watch along, what I noticed was that Fulham were playing Ange ball better than us. Just put it this way. The way they were pressing us, the way they were winning the midfield, the way they were just getting into our faces and sucking away those opportunities, they played better Ange ball that Big Ange did. The midfield, whatever Marco Silva instructed the team to do, it worked perfectly because at the hour mark, Big Ange was so frustrated with the performance he had to fall off the entire midfield tree, put Kulusevski in the middle, bring on Bentancur, bring on Højbjerg, take off Madison, take off Pepe Matassar, take off Bissouma. And when you have a vital ingredient in Ange ball that is missing, which is Mickey van der Ven, covering for Romero, who pushes so high up. With him missing, we are always going to leave gaps at the back. And they exploited it time and again. The chances that they could put away, they did away with some luck, some finesse, and also, for the most part, perseverance. Everything and anything that could have gone wrong for us that day did just that. And everything and anything that could have possibly gone their way, be it a 50-50 chance, lucky deflection, even us, James Maddison, I believe, grazing the post, or Timo Werner missing a gilt-edged chance. I think it was on the 70th minute mark or 75th minute mark, whatever it was. The very fact that we broke our own goal-scoring streak of 39 games in the league speaks volumes of just how everything and every single thing that went wrong for us just collapsed before our very eyes. I wouldn't necessarily call Big Ange out. I'm not even going to lay into the players. All I'm thinking is give the players a chance, regroup, refresh, take this midweek international break to heart and really put things to right. Next week against Luton at home, we set the record straight. 10 games to go with one postponed game against Chelsea to come. Top four is still very much in our hands mathematically. Top four is still very much in our hands mathematically. We just need to match Aston Villa result for result and better the goal difference. And let's just end the season with a flourish.
Oh, I hope that too, right? Before I get to Jordan, let me say a shout out to Miss Mel. Miss Mel, thanks for being here to drop a like. Right. Hopefully I'll catch up with you later in the F1 show on Sunday, right? In memory of Stephen. I'll go into that later. Right. But Jordan, as a neutral fan, right? A Liverpool fan, did you watch the game?
Well, I was all over the place on YouTube. So, what I heard about the score that Fulham beat the guy 3-0. Yes, and yeah, they played well at Carving Cottage, but the guys should have won against Fulham, no doubt, because they're not good without Mitrovic. And love my Arsenal friends, they're not good without Mitrovic, and they're still beating teams 3-0. And last time I realized them slapped West Ham 5 as well at Carving Cottage. But the guys should have won this game because they're not good without Mitrovic. So I don't know how they win this game without him 3-0.
Okay, fair, right. 10, I'm not sure whether you watched the game or not. Any input on the Fulham game before we go to Manny?
Well, to be honest, I saw the result. I thought Spurs would win, just based on the game against Aston Villa. But typical Spurs that I know beat a very good Aston Villa team, and then lose heavily to form, basically. So I didn't really watch the game, but when I saw the score, I was like, this is typical Spurs. I think the race for top four is probably going to be exciting. Could be Aston Villa, could be Spurs. You never know if Man United can do something. But I think it's important for Spurs to make sure that they do match the results of Aston Villa and Manchester United, because I think, failing to make top four for Tottenham for a second year in a row is not, it's not good enough. So, but looking at the games for Tottenham where they play Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal, Man City, I think Chelsea as well. So those are like half of the last 10 games are against, traditional big teams or teams that, will be challenging for at least the top 10 this season. So it's going to be really tough for Spurs, but I don't know. I'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. So that's really all I have to say.
All right. We'll come to that later. We're going to face you guys too, right? But let me say a shout out to Scott M. Big up, Scott. Big up, Scott. I hope you're doing well in Canada. And Mani, being our perennial adversary and enemy of the north side of London, where we'll call you the south side, and goes back and forth. You're top of the league. Right? And did you watch the game? I mean, your thoughts, I mean, of course, there are a lot of Spurs fans being very reactionary at the moment. What are your feelings?
I did watch a good majority of the game, Eugene, and I did mention in our last stream that I was actually quite excited for the prospects of three of our former Gunners coming up against you lot. And one trend which I've noticed is that every time Aston Villa have a poor result, Fulham seem to punish the team which beats them. So Fulham might end up being Aston Villa's kingmakers this season, which would be a little bit of a surprise in a way. When I say king, I'm not saying that Aston Villa have any chance of competing for the title. They've got to play us, Manchester City, and Liverpool in this coming run-in. And with the news, of course, that Matthew Cash picked up an unfortunate injury yesterday, barely 10 minutes after coming on as a sub for Poland against Estonia, it will be touch and go to see if he will be able to be fit for Aston Villa's weekend game against Wolves, while you lot get to feast, potentially at least, on the Hatters as they come calling. But we all know that Luton can't be taken for granted, but their away record is not the best by any means. Although the way Ten's nodding his head, I'm sorry to mention this, he will remember the 4-4 debacle at St. James's Park. And
we lost to them at their ground.
Yep. Yeah. But as I said, Luton's away record is not the best. But back to the Fulham Spurs game, it is an interesting theory in many ways as to why Saran Basuma couldn't play. What's surprising is that Ange Postecoglou, being a well-travelled, much knowledgeable coach, who has also, of course, coached the Socceroos at the World Cup, let's not forget, should have been, in theory, cognizant enough to know that certain players, even if they're fasting, would not really be able to cut it. And I do believe as well that in Islam, there are some caveats, as you will agree, Eugene. Like, for example, if you are going through a very heavy training schedule, or if your line of work, demands that you are kept well fueled, you have to make sure that you get your nutrition. And of course, both you, Eugene, and yourself, Your Majesty, you know who I'm talking about, you will be old enough to remember the gentleman who you lovingly refer to as Mr. Tottenham, a certain Gary Mabbott, who, was told when he was much younger that as a type 1 diabetic, he wouldn't play professional football, went on to play for Spurs for 16 years and earned 16 caps for England. And sadly, we can't say sweet 16 because sweet is the last thing you want to say to a diabetic. But, the point I'm trying to make without digressing is that in certain health or religious circumstances, sometimes you've got to make sure that you do the right thing to make sure that your body has the adequate fuel. And so what the club definitely should have done was spoken to the Muslim players and made sure that they understood the guidelines very well. Even with us at Arsenal, we've got Mohamed El Neni. I think Thomas Partey is a practicing Muslim. I'm not too sure, despite having a name of Thomas, a bit ironic. But obviously, the club will also go through the guidelines with their players and make sure that they understand their responsibilities. Of course, the fact that neither of those two are playing in our first team anyway renders the argument moot. But it was barely a week or so ago prior that you lot thrashed Aston Villa in what was really the worst second half capitulation I'd ever seen from Aston Villa. We've seen that they're a first half team, very much a Jekyll and Hyde team in terms of performances by half, but that second half was absolutely dreadful. And the fact that John McGinn will not be playing in the upcoming, I think he missed the West Ham game. He's also going to miss Wolves, and he could potentially miss the Manchester City clash, which means that Emi Martinez will captain the team. But then to go from one extreme to another, I mean, I can understand the reactions. I think the best the reasoning that I can give is that maybe Fulham Spurs got a little bit complacent in a way. I don't want to say cocky because obviously you've got the cockerel. That would be a rather uncomfortable word association there, but this is just another reminder that in the Premiership you can never take anything for granted. And obviously Fulham are also another Jekyll and Hyde team who will be dire enough to lose at home to Burnley and take only 1 point from them, but then beat the likes of us and now you at Craven Cottage. And as Mr. Hyman mentioned, they also thrashed West Ham to the tune of 5-0 at Craven Cottage. You see a lot of teams, literally having some very bipolar level or almost schizophrenic performances. So this particular season has seen far too many to count. And it just goes to show that nothing can really be taken for granted. But I just think instead of focusing too much on Spurs, you've also got to give credit to Fulham and how they were tactically set up. And without wanting to really rub it in, I thought Iwobi, William and company really played the game exceptionally well. They made sure that they were on Spurs from the beginning and never really allowed them to settle. Special mention, of course, to Harry Wilson. And of course, Wilson was in fine form last night for Wales against Finland. I was doing a watch along for Hanno's channel. And the fact that Cam Davies, of all people, had a fine display, was very unlucky to have a goal disallowed. That might give you some consolation. But Fulham were just really motivated to do as well as they could. And I think there's something about this Fulham team. They seem motivated to really play their best against some of the bigger teams that may come calling. But when it comes to smaller teams, they too get complacent. But Marco Silva, I think, probably came into the game with a plan on how to not really allow the likes of Maddison and company to settle, or even Basuma and company. And, when you have someone like Iwobi who has the ability to really come in hard with the tackles and really just break up play quite well, while also playing well down the wing, as did Willian and the likes of Wilson and others. Fulham were just relentless, and they were also very clinical with a lot of their chances. And I don't even recollect Bernd Leno having to make any really big saves, maybe one or two. But then that just goes to show that Fulham was simply at the races, and I think Spurs allowed themselves to get a little bit complacent. And once they went down, it was almost as if they had no answers. But having said that, I think Chang said it perfectly, that some of the chances that Spurs missed were literally gilt-edged. How Timo Werner was unable to score against his compatriot not too long after coming on, I can never know. I don't know what your the opinions of you three are on Werner, whether or not you think he's been a good signing. But, he normally back himself to score that way, score that. And the fact that he couldn't, I think it just summed everything up. It just wasn't going to be Tottenham's day. But as has been mentioned by Chang, the top four is still very much in your hands. You've obviously got a game in hand. You're 3 points behind. You've got a inferior goal difference of -1 to Villa. So if you keep winning your games and match them result for result, you should be able to get it. But we keep saying the same thing as Arsenal fans because we are top of the league only via goal difference. Lose to City and see Liverpool, go further and keep on winning. And it could be all for nothing. And I see Jordan making a few gestures there. I'm not one to sort of mock you lot because I'll tell you what, we were very fortunate against you boys in the league on 2 occasions. We should have lost to you at Anfield, and it was some defensive mistakes on your part which gave us the 3 points at the Emirates. But we can't afford to take anything for granted, and we're in a situation as well where we can't afford to lose any single game, and that's where Spurs are at the moment. So all I can say is that you've got to try and shake this off, and I really don't think Ramadan should be an excuse because the other Muslim players would probably be suffering the same way at this particular point in time. And Basuma especially has played long enough in the Premiership to know the score. I really don't see how he would have been affected by it. Also, let's not forget, if Aston Villa were to win the Conference League and Liverpool were to win the Europa League, it would improve the English coefficient immeasurably. You could see Villa and Spurs both making the Champions League as the 4th and 5th best teams in either order. So, again, just keep hoping, keep working, and all is not lost.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And of course, let me do a big shout out to Tamizi, Tamizi. Yeah, good to have you on, brother. Good to have you on. Right. But guys, we all understand that. But of course, it's football. We have to get over it when we lose, and then of course we have to come back when we win. When there's the next game coming up. But of course, now we have this international break in between, right? I'm not going to go into the international games because I think the big game is coming up tomorrow against Brazil, but that's that game. That's all friendlies, right? But let me go on to the next game, right? We're going to talk. Let me see which one should we go for first. Okay, let me go for this first because this is because 10's under 10's domain. Right, because to tell the truth, I'll go first. I didn't watch the game, but I did expect City to actually beat Newcastle. But I'm not sure about the rest of you guys. But let me get to Chang first. Chang, the new City Newcastle game in the FA Cup. Any thoughts on it?
What can I say? Bernardo Silva, what a player! 2 goals in the first half that pretty much ended the game as a contest in the first half alone. Despite, I believe Newcastle tried to come back strong in the second half. They did show some fight, credit to them. But in the end, Manchester City's quality showed through. I'll be very honest with you. I didn't watch the match, but I did watch the highlights. And the chances in the second half were pretty even. But as I just mentioned, Bernardo Silva, what a class above in that match. Those 2 goals, well-taken goals, and they can look forward to yet another semi-final. I believe they are facing, is it Leicester? Is it? No, not Leicester.
Chelsea.
Yep, that's the one. They're facing Pochettino. That's correct. Thank you for correcting me. And it's going to be Guardiola and Pochettino again in a semi-final. What a surprise!
Oh yeah.
I mean, Spurs fans know a lot about Pochettino and Guardiola, but I believe Eddie Howe. What can I say? Newcastle actually they have the players, and Newcastle they are just like Spurs. They are in a rebuild. They are there and about challenging for maybe a spot in Europe, barely, but they are thereabouts. And if they could only just maybe get a functional midfielder, I know that was what was expected of Sandro Tonali, but no one expected Sandro Tonali to, just get banned from football altogether for an entire season. So that was a big miss. And in that first half alone, you could see that much like the Spurs-Fulham game, City were all over Newcastle, and the 2 goals by Bernardo Silva showed. Second half was a much different game. Full credit where credit is due. I believe Newcastle really put up one hell of a fight. And for Newcastle to properly progress, I believe they are just maybe a signing or 2 away from a complete squad. I would certainly back Eddie Howe to lead Newcastle to better and greater heights. But until they complete their rebuild, Newcastle still have a lot to do from between now and the end of the season.
Okay, that's fair. Arthur, your thoughts on the Newcastle, the Man City Newcastle game?
Well, like you, I never watched the game, but I expected City to be about 5-0 up. So I was quite surprised it was only 2-0.
Okay.
But I knew they'd win anyway. So yeah, it's like seeing the same old thing over and over again, isn't it? You don't keep watching it because it's gonna be going the way you think it's gonna go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair. Jordan, your thoughts? M-City, Newcastle?
Despite they missed this match, but my team played as well on that same day as well.
We'll come to that afterwards, sir. That's going to be a very exciting part. Yeah. Let's get to
great
10. Let's rub it in
great
10
goal
for a
to
while.
Bernard Silva. This ball, this player is good. 2 goals. I don't even think they need Haaland at all. But what a win by Pep Guardiola. I think he's going for another triple, maybe. I hope it's not going to happen. I want Chelsea to kick them out. I want Chelsea to beat them. So yeah, great win by Man City indeed over Newcastle United. I'm sorry for Bruno Guimaraes as well, but well tried Newcastle. But that's how it goes, man. But GG to City. Indeed.
Yeah. Mani, your thoughts? Africa?
Well, I actually did watch quite a bit of the game, and if you recall, I was actually predicting that we'd have a bit of a cup shock with Newcastle denying City any goals in open play and possibly sneaking through on penalties, especially with Edison Moraes out. Not that it made much of a difference because Ortega normally plays in the in the FA Cup anyway. But of course, the fact that Edison is going to be out for a crucial stage could actually be beneficial to quite a few teams, most notably us. We played on Easter Sunday. But Newcastle actually, I think defensively they might have had a few issues, but the goals were very, very fortuitous, it has to be said. A deflection for the first one, an own goal for the second. And Newcastle have to be given some credit for keeping it tight and not really allowing City to do very much more. But then maybe City, because there's no way that City would have wanted to take their foot off the pedal in terms of trying to make sure that their treble bid was, their double treble, as it were, was well and truly on track. But again, hard luck stories don't really cut the mustard. They don't pay the bills, as we would say. And Newcastle now have an even bigger challenge to try to recover something from the season, at least in terms of European qualification, see if they can try and go from there. It's sad in a way, and I think Newcastle's season, as I mentioned to 10 in our previous stream, has been a really horrible hard luck story. The whole Tonali issue definitely was something that, in my opinion, rocked the club to its foundations, because had he stayed along with the season for that particular period, especially with Isak and the form that he was in at the time, Newcastle fans could potentially have been dreaming of really of much bigger things. Nick Pope out for the whole season. Joe Linton, that sort of completely mucks up your entire midfield. And I'll be honest with you, once they scored that second, I sort of lost interest in that, because I actually was rooting for Newcastle. I didn't want to see Manchester City, go any further. And it was sad in a way, and it was just disappointing. But again, you've got to give City credit for another professional performance. It's, as we always say, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. If Haaland doesn't score, then someone else must. And that's why we still got to be afraid. But I still think defensively, City can be very vulnerable, especially if they've got that Portuguese thief, Ruben Diaz, in. Easily one of the most inconsistent defenders in Premier League history, in my opinion. And how that fellow continues to play despite making mistake after mistake is beyond me. It just goes to show that even the best managers have their own dud selections every now and then. But, City just march on. They prove that they have more and more players in their 11 and in their squad who can definitely leave an impact. And if you ever need a goal off the bench, then Bob's your uncle. Oscar Bob, that is.
Oscar Bob. Uncle Bob. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's get to 10, right? Because this is, I guess, part of what I call You guys reached the Carabao Cup final last season. This was one more of a stepping stone for you to get to the FA Cup final, right? Into the semis and all that. But I think what I see from Ten's reaction whenever we talk about Eddie Howe and all that, the players that they have, right? I mean, the rebuild is there, but do you think Eddie Howe is the one that actually can bring you forward to the heights and the glory?
No. I mean, what? A couple, 2-3 days ago, there was news that Sven Botman, ACL injury, 6 to 9 months. And we've played him for, the game against Man City. And he was pretty bad. We played him against Chelsea. He was pretty bad. So I'm like, why didn't we just make someone like Sven Botman do his surgery back in September, October? He would have been probably much better, maybe miss most of the season, but maybe would have came back a lot sooner. Now we have to buy a new center back. We have to buy a left back. Probably have to buy 1 or 2 midfielders. Probably have to buy a center forward. We desperately need a new right winger. So I know it's a lot of a rebuild, but I'm like, some of the mistakes defensively have just been really, really bad. And to be honest, the game itself, Man City 2-0, I watched maybe 5 minutes or until Man City scored the first goal and it was game over. Like, I knew what the game plan was. The game plan was hold on for 0-0, hope it goes to penalties, and we'll see if we win. But once it was 1-0, I just knew there was no chance we're going to progress. And then when they score a second, I check on my phone. I'm like, oh, it's 2-0. Okay, FA Cup over. I got to celebrate St. Patrick's Day later that night. I decided Newcastle's not going to ruin my St. Patrick's celebration that night. And to be honest, like, our season's basically over. I don't think with the players we have injured or suspended, I don't think we have enough players that are good enough to get into the top 7 or even top 8, because Botman is out, Nick Pope is out, Tonali suspended, Joe Wellington is injured, Anthony Gordon, thankfully he's not injured, but we keep on playing him every single game. At some point, I'm pretty sure sometime in April or May, he's going to get an injury because we keep on playing him, because Harvey Barnes gets injured as well. And then Isak and Wilson, they're injured every now and then. And then Almiron or Jacob Murphy, they're not good enough. So there's only really 2-3 good players, or actually 4 if you count Anthony Gordon, that's in our team. That's Fabian Schär, Livramento, who Eddie Howe doesn't play, Bruno Guimaraes, and Anthony Gordon. But I'm pretty sure at some point Anthony Gordon will probably be one down and will get an injury that'll keep him out for 6 months or something. And then Livramento, he just doesn't play him for some reason and always plays Dan Burn. And almost every single team will try to attack on Dan Burn's side of defense. So it's only really Fabian Schär and Bruno Guimaraes that I can kind of trust that won't really get injuries. But 2 players out of 9 is not that good. Our season's basically over. I think we lose, or at least we'll have maybe 1 or 2 very good games. Maybe we'll beat Spurs, but even if we beat Spurs, it's not going to mean much anyway. We could beat Spurs 8-0 this season and still finish 10th, and it still won't be good enough, in my opinion. And I really don't think Eddie Howe's the man to take us forward beyond this season. I think I could just write the season off. No Europe. Okay, let's have a fresh next season, and have a new manager, a manager that actually has a plan B, because Eddie Howe, when it's against teams like Arsenal or Man City or Liverpool, all we do is defend for 10 men behind the ball and just hope that, defensively we do okay. Like last season when we were at the Emirates, we drew 0-0 with Arsenal. This season, tried to do the same game plan, and lost 4-1. So I'm like, Eddie Howe just doesn't have a plan B when he comes up against the big teams. And usually you play against the big teams in a quarterfinal, semifinal, maybe even the final of the Carabao Cup or FA Cup. And so far, Eddie Howe has lost to Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup last season. The season before, he lost to Cambridge United. But then this season, he lost to Chelsea on penalties when we were 1-0 up in the 92nd minute until we conceded. We lost to Man City in the FA Cup. We lost to Man United in the Carabao Cup final. Literally, it's either we lose or just play at the level of a League One team, as in like Sheffield Wednesday or Cambridge United, or we're just not good enough to play against a Man City or who else? Man United when it's, when it comes down to the cup competitions. And to be honest, that's what I want. Just as much as Spurs fans want to win the trophy. We gone it will be 70? Yeah, next year it will be 70 years since winning the FA Cup, which is probably our most recent trophy, 1955. So I'm like, how long do Newcastle fans have to wait? And do I think Eddie Howe is the man to take Newcastle forward? No. Do I think Eddie Howe is the man to take England after Southgate leaves? I think Eddie Howe is probably much more suited to international football than he is with Newcastle. That's why I think I want us to get someone like maybe Xabi Alonso or who else? Yeah, Xabi Alonso.
Look at Johnny.
Yeah, I want someone that actually wins trophies.
No way. No way.
Yes.
No. He's a former Liverpool player. No way. He's coming to Merseyside. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Xabi Alonso. Who else? I wouldn't even mind someone like Inzaghi at Inter, Simeone at Atletico. Like how long do I need to wait?
Would you take Conte?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I would. Because at least Conte, he knows how to win. He knows how to win. Yeah. He knows how. Look, when he was at Spurs, in the top 4 race against Arsenal, he beat Arsenal to the top 4. Yes, it's not a trophy, but considering the owners of Tottenham, as Eugene always has Levy out, Enoch out, the expectations from the owners of Tottenham is top 4. The expectations from the Newcastle owners this time is to win trophies. Has Eddie Howe won a major trophy? No. Has Conte? Yes. Has Xabi Alonso? Probably most likely. Simeone has. How long does Eddie Howe need? Because this summer will be his 5th or 6th transfer window. So how many transfer windows should Eddie Howe be given until we should be, to be honest, demanding to win a trophy? So to be honest, this season's over. Next season, we're in the Premier League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. We're not going to win the Premier League, I know that. So win the FA Cup and or the Carabao Cup next season, because that would be if we don't win anything next season, that would be 4 years already since the ownership came in that we had the opportunity to build. Yeah, it's been October 2021. So next year is 2025. Okay. 4 years. Well, it will probably be 5 eventually. 4 or 5 years. That's how long it took Man City to win the FA Cup and the Premier League. That's the same amount of time Chelsea won the, I think, Carabao Cup and Premier League. Look, I don't think we'll win the Premier League, but surely we have to be winning a Carabao Cup or FA Cup in next season. Like, that is the bare minimum. But every single time, this is almost like a plague that I see Spurs fans on Twitter. There are also Newcastle fans who are like, why are you so demanding for wanting to win trophies? Like, it's part of the process to lose to Cambridge United and Sheffield Wednesday. Or for Tottenham, would be losing to Sheffield United, firm in the cups. It's part of the process. I'm like, what process do we need Arsenal have been in a 4 or 5 year process and have won 0 trophies. Liverpool have been in a process, of a rebuild last summer, and they could be winning 3 trophies: the Premier League, they've already won the Carabao Cup and the Europa League. So it took Liverpool 1 year of a process to potentially win 3 trophies. It has taken Arsenal, Newcastle, and probably even Spurs, 4 or 5, I don't know how long, years to win a trophy. So that's why it's so frustrating that April and May we'll have 1 or 2, 3 good games, we'll win, but we'll also lose to maybe like Brighton at home or Tottenham or whoever we play, because it's not going to be good enough to get into any of the European places, to be honest. And so that's why it's so frustrating that our season's basically over, and it's going to be the same story as
then, okay, because if I see it right, because Eddie Howe has just taken you guys about he's actually been in full control for 1 season last season, right? And he's brought you to the Champions League. I think that progress has been too quick, right? You guys
went from when Eddie Howe first came in, we were bottom of the league, and then by the end of that season, we finished 11th.
Yeah,
it would have been okay to finish 8th or 7th, but because he brought us up to 4th last season, now we're 10th. We're back to where we were 2 years ago, basically. Okay, we had we actually only had 1 good European game, which was PSG at home, but it amounted to nothing because we finished bottom of our group. When we bottled against AC Milan, we've bottled against PSG away, we bottled against Liverpool at our place, we've bottled against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Okay, we didn't really bottle against Man City, but we could have at least had put up a much more better fight, even though the goals were, you could kind of say lucky against Man City. But, once we were 1-0 down against Man City, it was game over. Like, there was no point in watching the game. Like, I didn't watch the game afterwards, after the first goal, because I knew the result is going to be as I expected. We lose, and every single Newcastle fan would be like, well, that was pretty good from Eddie Howe. Good performance. We only kept it 2-0. 2-0. Good on Eddie Howe. I don't really care if we lose 5-0 or 2-0. I want us to. Yeah, we still lost. So I'm like, okay.
And it's a cup game. Yeah, we understand that.
So
I know.
I think
so. At least now we know your feelings, right? So you're going to be the new Keshav, right, for wanting Moyes out. So now you'll be the new. The new Ken for one thing.
And at least David Moyes has won the trophy.
Oh
past
3 years, That's the thing,
so I just think that overall this season has been a disaster. When last summer we had the aura, like, this is Newcastle United, we have Champions League football, come play with us. And we signed Harvey Barnes from a relegated Leicester. We signed Liverpool, who's been good, but we signed him from a relegated Southampton, who he barely played for because he's been injured that time. We signed Sandro Tonali, and who's the other one? Lewis Hall, but he barely plays, just like Liverpool. So in the past few games, I remember when we lost to Luton at their ground, Tonali was suspended. Liverpool wasn't in the starting 11. Lewis Hall wasn't in the starting 11. Harvey Barnes was injured. So we had 0 players that we signed that played against Luton. So we had the exact same team last season, play against Luton, and lost. So we didn't improve the team at all. When people back in the summer said, Newcastle, they look good. They're building a team. Yet when we lost to Luton or lost a few games this season, we had 0 new signings from this past year. 0.
Yeah.
So
all right, I understand. I understand how you feel, right? But let's get to the most exciting game of the last week, right? Was actually this game, right?
Oh.
MU versus Liverpool. Yeah. No, to tell you the truth, right? I watched this game and I was going, okay, when I switched it on, MU was already 1-2 down. Right. Then they came back, right? And then it was a ding-dong game. I mean, this is the type of games that we as football fans, right, want to see, right? The passion, the desire to win. This is the things that we want to see our players want to show. To tell the truth, right? Dallo, who scored the winning goal, did the most dumbest thing that I ever saw, right? He really taken off his shirt. Yeah. 2 times.
I mean,
got a red card for it.
to score in the last minute against your biggest rivals in a cup competition.
Yeah, but okay, guys, that was one of the best games of the week, right? Which I saw in the FA Cup. That actually even overshadowed most of the Premier League games, right? It was considered more or less an upset because the way that Liverpool was playing, right? I was seeing, right, when Liverpool was 2-1 up, right, they were actually in command of the game. They could have actually wiped MU off the face of that field, right? But somehow or other, they just couldn't finish off their lunch or their dinner or their supper or their breakfast. So that gave MU the chance to come back. And it is what it is. I'll come to you last, Jordan, since you're the Liverpool fan. I'll go to Chang first. Chang, your thoughts? I'm sure you watched the game too, right? Because it was more or less the game to watch for the Sunday games.
I managed to watch maybe half an hour of it from 11:30 p.m. to midnight, and Manchester United was still leading 1-0 at that point. And I thought, you know what? It's the FA Cup. It's not the league. It's Manchester United. It's Old Trafford. You're going to get a win with this. Regardless of how strongly Liverpool come back, somehow or other, the officiating is going to swing United's way. And when I saw in the morning, when I saw that United had won 4-3 after extra time, I'm thinking, let's see how it got to this, okay? Let's just rewind and have a look at what happened. I saw the highlights. Both teams had more than enough chance to wrap the game up at normal regular time. How Marcus Rashford missed his chance before the end of the final whistle in regulation time, I will never know. Why would even Klopp decide to bring Salah off when they were clearly in the ascendancy? I'm never going to ask Klopp about it because he'll probably call me too skinny and unfit to even be a journalist in the football. But credit where credit is due. Liverpool played very well on the day. And when you saw, I believe it was, let's see now, who scored for Liverpool? Please remind me who scored for Liverpool in extra time. One of the youngsters. Who scored for Liverpool?
Harvey Elliott.
That is correct. Elliott, yes, yeah. Exactly. When Elliott scored in extra time to make it, I believe it was 3-3 at the time because United had taken the lead, but then he pulled it back to 3-3. And I'm thinking, you know what, this is going to go to penalties. But surprise, surprise, Harvey Elliott, the scorer of the third goal, somehow or other gives the ball away with like 1 minute of injury time left from the additional 30. And the breakaway goes, the breakaway is on. United score it. The game was very entertaining, but it was one for the neutrals to watch. It's one of the best FA Cup knockout matches in recent memory, and at this rate, I would fancy United to actually make it all the way to the final. I would actually, I fancy a Manchester derby for the FA Cup final, but for Liverpool, their title ambitions are still very much on, regardless of this result. I still strongly back Liverpool to lift the Europa League trophy come the end of the season. And for Liverpool fans, I believe the best is still yet to come.
Okay, fair. Arthur, do you watch the game?
No. No, I was fed up with football after our result. I just thought, you know what? I'm not interested this week. And so I sat down and watched films instead.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, take the stress away from all the Spurs.
I sat with Glenn and that, we had a real laugh.
That's good. That's good. Right. Mani, your thoughts on the MU Liverpool game, right? Your perennial rivals of this last half a decade or so.
An absolute Old Trafford classic. I think there's something about playing in the cups that seems to bring out the best in some ways in Eric Ten Hag's team. Last season, of course, they were League Cup winners and FA Cup finalists, and maybe this time around they see the FA Cup as a means of trying to get their hands on some silverware. And as a nice subplot, they will be playing the semi-finals against Coventry City, managed by a certain Mark Robbins, who saved Alex Ferguson's job and went on to see him and the club go from strength to strength. It was one of those particular games where Liverpool was showing their class and their superiority, but United was showing spirit and fighting back hard. And, it just had to be Amad Diallo with that winner. And the big problem I had with Liverpool is that obviously, they were playing exceptionally well. The children were proving that they were all right. But defensively, I think they just lost concentration at the worst possible time and allowed, United to come back in. It just goes to show that as well as your more inexperienced players or your bench players can play, it's the first teamers that always make a big difference in many ways. But, credit to United. They did hang in there. They did show spirit. And, several mistakes that were made. That mistake from Harvey Elliott, which led to that breakaway for United's winner. I think he's going to look back on that and say, you know what, I completely mucked up there. And obviously, Jurgen Klopp was not best pleased with the result. And, you got to beware this wounded team. They're going to take out all of their frustrations, obviously, on their league opponents, which could very well be frightening. And having already played Arsenal and City twice this season, they turned their attentions to Aston Villa and Tottenham and other teams. Those teams could be Liverpool's kingmakers. But I think every time they have a setback like this, they just get a little bit, they get more ferocious. They remind me of City in a way. The only problem I have with Liverpool is that their own injuries could also cost them in a way. Queeman Kelleher is a decent understudy, but he is no Alisson Becker. I think we need to accept that. And as far as Liverpool are concerned, it's just on to the next and try and hope that they can still salvage something more from the season. They have a League Cup. They could still win the league. They could still win the Europa League. Kind of reminds me of Graham Souness's final season when they won a treble, albeit not the FA Cup, but the League Cup, in addition to the League and the European Cup. But as for Manchester United, they're still going to keep rumbling on, but I just think... and they're going to come up against Coventry, so they are looking forward to a second final appearance. I really think Coventry also benefited from some pretty poor Wolverhampton defending, of course, to get those breathlessly late goals. And the semi-final really, in all should be a formality, but we've seen this United team also struggle in earlier rounds against
Copenhagen.
In the FA Cup. Yeah, Newport. That was the team I was thinking of in this competition. So, all is not. Coventry shouldn't really. United shouldn't look forward to a second consecutive FA Cup final just yet because they've still got to negotiate, obviously, that tough semi-final. And whether they will come up against Guardiola or Pochettino remains to be seen. But they can give themselves credit for this win, which proves that there is still some life in them. But it's their final league position that probably will determine whether Ten Hag stays on for next season. To not be in the Champions League will be a big letdown.
Yeah. Ten, before you go, right? Your thoughts on the MU Liverpool game?
Well, I only saw the highlights because I went to a third tier Spanish game that day, my first away day. But I was just every now and then checking my phone just to see the score update. 1-0, and then I would think it was like 2-1, and then 3-2 Liverpool, 3-3, and then 4-3 at the end. I'm like, oh, I missed the game because the game that I watched at the stadium, it ended 0-0. But it was a good day out. But I mean, for Manchester United, they're lucky to get Coventry City, but looking at how Coventry have been over the past 18 months, they could have been in the Premier League had they not lost on penalties to Luton. They are in the playoff positions to get promoted, and maybe this time they will get promoted. Thankfully, no Sunderland or Middlesbrough, so that's good. Coventry came back to beat Wolves and have been on a good cup run this season. So I think for the case of Manchester United, it seems like a formality that they beat Coventry, but you just never know with the FA Cup, considering that at least Coventry City has some Wembley experience recently, even though they lost to Luton. But I do think it will be a Manchester derby, but will it be the same result? I think it depends on how Man City go about in the league. If they don't win the Premier League, I think they win the FA Cup. I don't think they'll win both the Premier League and FA Cup.
Yeah, they're still going
we'll
for trouble.
they're still going for trouble.
Yeah. But before we leave, like 10, just get your short thoughts on the Newcastle Spurs games that's coming up, because that's more or less the game, right? We're going to face you quite.
Actually, we're going to face you guys in Australia as well.
Don't go there. That's got the Spurs fan base all riled up, right? So, so don't go there. Don't go there. I mean,
think hard about the boomerang.
But last season, right? We practically.
You guys gave up in 20 minutes.
No, I think we gave up in 20 seconds, right? So we were like 5-0 down by the
21st minute. Yeah,
21st minute and all that. So, but your thoughts this time round before you leave?
Depends on who we have fit for that game. I think. Well, it's still probably 3 weeks away, but I think we'll probably lose. Maybe because look, we can beat Spurs 5-1 when we were relegated. We beat Spurs 6-1. We beat Spurs 7-1 way back 20 years ago, whatever, 30 years. But also Spurs have a good record at our place, just like how we have every now and then a very good record at the Tottenham Stadium or White Hart Lane. So I think it could be an exciting game, maybe a 3-2 win for Spurs, and then every Newcastle fan will celebrate, putting up a good fight against Spurs and saying 10th place is progress, so yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dan, for the 3-2 win for Spurs, right? So usually when things like that happen, we ain't gonna beat you guys, right? So we'll
probably maybe I'm jinxing it so that we win, but we'll see.
But thanks for being on 10, right? Have a good day. Have a good walk in the sun. You are in sunny Spain at the moment, right?
Yeah, it's sunny today, thank God. All right,
Okay.
Cheers. Great. Big up, everyone.
Bye-bye. Right. All right, then I have to get to one thing, right? Jordan, your quadruple is over. Tell me about the Manchester United game, man. I mean, you guys were leading. You guys should have taken the game away from Manchester United, but somehow or another, it didn't happen. So how would you say that?
This kid, I never seen him play before for United. He come from out of nowhere and score against us. This is the worst performance I ever seen by my club. They take Salah off the field. For what reason?
Oh yeah, Klopp took Salah off, right? Sucked him, right?
Salah scored the goal. After Salah, come Harvey Elliott. It's done. It's a Manchester derby. I cannot stand United and City. Hope one of them draw, and one of them probably draw at the extra time.
Oh, that's true.
I probably think City could be winning that penalty shootout. So yeah, they have Kevin back. They have Foden, Haaland. I think they will be winning that. So yeah, it's for us now. It's Europa League and Premier League. It's doomed. It's done. If Salah never come off the field, we will have won the game.
That's true. So you blame Klopp.
We lead the game. And if Salah was still on the field, we would have won the game. It's the reason why we lose on the field.
That's fair. That's fair. And
So we have to start all over again from scratch with a different manager. Oh my days, it's done.
but Jordan, of course, you're not going to get the quadruple, right? But you really still have the Carabao Cup in the bag, right?
Yeah.
So now you're going for the Premier League and the Europa League, right? So it's still quite okay. But it's still a good season for Klopp to go off, riding off into the sunset with, right? And
Yeah.
like
Now
we
we
like
have to beat Brighton. We have to beat Brighton, and City have to lose against Arsenal. And if that happens, one of us is going to win or drop points on the last game.
Yeah. But the MCT and Arsenal game, what I see is like most probably it's turned up to be another draw. Like the game that, to tell you the truth, right? When MCT played you guys, right? It was a 1-1 game too. So I got a funny feeling it's going to end up as another drag draw again. And
It'll repeat like that to this season. 1-1.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, right? That's why Spurs and Aston Villa at this juncture in time, right, are going to be actually the kingmakers of the league, right? Because before we go to the other two games between you guys, Newcastle and Spurs. Any thoughts, Chang, on Newcastle and Spurs on the 13th of April?
I just hope for a repeat performance away at St. James's Park. I'm just hoping for the team to turn up. We really cannot afford another Fulham away. I just really hope Son Heung-min for the second game running against Newcastle, he really tears Kieran Trippier a new one down that left flank and expose him time and time again for maybe Richarlison to finally justify that 60 million pound price tag of his that is looking more and more of a mistake as seasons go by. But we have another 10 more games to be the judge of that, so I'm not going to lay into him just yet. All I want is for the Spurs team to turn up at St. James's Park. I really look forward to a clean sheet, and we simply have to score there. Absolutely no excuses. Back to you, Mr. Eugene.
Okay, fair. For me, is that I just hope that we don't turn up like last season and get smacked. But let's hope because it's like say 20 days away from today, right? For the next game to come, or 21 days you can call it. So let's hope whether the injuries and all that won't pile up again. We're going through the international break, and usually when the international break comes along, it breaks us. So that's one game I hope we can rectify what we have to, what we did what happened last season in St. James's Park, right? And don't forget, guys, when that game, right, who was in charge? Stellini and Ryan Mason. So at least we got Ange now there, right? Big up to Rob Belcher. Good afternoon to you. Hope you're doing well too, Rob. Hope you're doing well. Yeah. Weekends on Jose Proceeds. Yeah, that's a good thing. Right. Stop the internationals. Right. Arthur, PTSD, St. James's Park.
No, I think if he kicked him up the rear end hard enough and used that red hot poker, we should come out with 3 points.
Okay, fair.
That's what I'm hoping for. In fact, I'm praying for it.
We have to pray for it. Not even hoping for it. Right. I'm not sure where Jordan's gone. Jordan, if you, I'm not sure whether it's your internet connection or what, but let's hope you can come back before we get to the Liverpool side. Mani, you there?
Very much here. If I do have to leave, I will tell you, but I just switch off the camera and mute the mic when I'm not speaking. So don't want to disturb anyone.
No thoughts on us playing against Newcastle away, right? Last season was I'm sure you saw what happened last season, right? So this season, positive.
This season, this is a game that Spurs simply have to win. I think Newcastle, as 10 has rather, morosely laid out, do look a bit demoralized from everything that's happened. And they, in reality, I am hopeful that they can go on a late run, but in reality, they really only have pride to play for. But if Spurs fail this test, goodbye Champions League ambitions, because it's important for Spurs to succeed where Aston Villa miserably failed. So I might go so far to predict a 3-1 Tottenham win, but the boys are going to have to start really performing better. Simple as that.
Okay, fair.
And I can, I think that this is your way of saying from my lips to the Lord's ears. Am I right?
Okay. We'll quickly go through this, right? Seeing all the Spurs fans. Let's go to the next one, right? So this is going to be the next game that's going to come up for Spurs, right? After that, we're going to play Arsenal, and we're going to play Arsenal at home, right? Chang, your thoughts? Any hopes? So Arsenal's going to run us over at home, or we're going to turn up and give Arsenal a run for their money, and then their hopes of winning the title?
I tell you what, I think right now, because this is more than a month away, in fact, it's a month and a week away from today, I'm going to reserve my thoughts on this. All I will say is the away game at St. James's Park against Newcastle is going to be a very, very accurate barometer to accurately sort of like gauge just how far we have come a month later from today. This game will be our cup final this season, regardless if whether we are still in a reckoning for fourth, regardless if we've already been pipped for fifth by whoever is leading the chasing pack down below us. This will be our cup final. I couldn't care less where we end the season. I couldn't care less where we finish come the end of the season. I just want the lads to put up a decent performance. Right now, based on our current form and Arsenal's current form, I'd gladly take a draw. Anything more than a draw would be a very, very big bonus for us. Because believe me, when I say this, we are currently in no form to even consider winning at home against the likes of Woolwich. As much as it pains me to say this, they are now in the ascendancy, the same way Pochettino was in the ascendancy, and oh my goodness. Who's the good evening guy again? Remind me what's his name? Emery. Yep. When Emery was on the way down and Pochettino was on the way up. Now it's the exact reverse. So I would gladly take a point now, and the Newcastle away game a week before that will be a good it will be like a good baseline to gauge just how well we will perform against Arsenal. I really wish that we can keep a clean sheet against them. Nothing would please me more than to just keep a clean sheet against them, even if it ends in a goalless, in a scoreless draw. I'm going to just settle for the point. Anything more than a point is a massive bonus, because for us to even get a win over them this season would be an incredible achievement. But I would very much settle for not losing to them home and away this season. Back to you, Mr. Eugene.
The damn truth, right? Like you said, right? This game is like nearly 5 weeks away, right? And Arsenal has to go through a lot of other things that they go through, because at the moment now, as I see it, they still have to play the Champions League game against Bayern Munich. So maybe that will take a toll on them, and maybe that will be a favorable scenario for us, but it's hard to say, right? But Arthur, I mean, it's a Spurs-Arsenal game. I'm sure you're going to be there, right? So let me have your feelings on that.
I'll be there, being a season ticket holder. The Spurs-Arsenal games, you can never really tell. We can be show bravado and say, yeah, they're going to win by, I don't know, 3-1, 4-0, whatever the case may be. But you never know until the day dawns what the result is going to be from either team. And I think it's always totally different from any other game in the Prem. You know, when Spurs v Arsenal, or Arsenal v Spurs, whichever way round it is, it's always totally different from normal Premiership games anyway. It's a cup final in effect for both sides. So may the best man win. That's all I can say.
Right.
I mean, 2 seasons ago they came down, and the crowd at White Hart Lane absolutely shook the Arsenal youngsters, and they were walking around with their mouths wide open. What's this noise? You know, it was incredible. But that's a different scenario. They've been there, they've played there now. So this game is totally different, and it's best man wins. That's all I can say. I'm not going to predict who's going to win. I think it's the best team on the day that will win. And as I said, it is so different from normal Premiership games.
Yeah, and to tell the truth, right, it's depending whether we want to show up or not, right? I remember that season.
Absolutely.
I remember the season when we actually outplayed them, and when the fans were all in for it, right? We're gonna smack them and all that, and we came out and did a job. But after that, I'm not sure. Let's see what happens this season, right? But of course, like I said, it's a North London derby. Passion, desire, intensity, right, and intelligence, right? Let's hope that we have some intelligence there. But let me get to Mani, right? Mani, your thoughts, right? Because I've been saying you guys have a lot on your plate, right? Especially with the, if you're not mistaken, quarterfinals of the Champions League on the table, right? Playing 2 games against Bayern Munich before you play us, right? If I'm not mistaken. What's your thoughts on that?
This North London derby to us will be what the Newcastle game and other games will be to you. We fail to win this, we have no right to call ourselves the best team in the league. Obviously, I remember the earlier clash at the Emirates where we were, doing quite well, but then Georgie Porgy, as I called him, made that horrible mistake. And, I remember that making up that poem, Georgie Porgy Pudding and Pie, made a mistake and made Arsenal fans cry. And because you Spurs came out to play, that's 2 precious points that we threw away. And I'd like to think that since then we have gotten a little bit more intelligent with our play, and we seem to be obviously finding a way to score goals even without a striker. Kai Havertz seems to be proving to be at least somewhat worth the money that we wasted on him, as it were. But again, we've been feasting on teams that have not been able to cut the mustard. How we perform against some really big teams will really determine where we stand. And the City game will be a starting point. This game against Spurs has to be something that gives us that. I mean, obviously the bragging rights will be there, but it also gives us that level of comfort knowing that we still have the title race in our own hands. It could change if we lose to City anyway, but if we fail to win here, then it's all over for us as far as I'm concerned. And I'll tell you what, Ange is nothing if not a top-class motivator. He will obviously have your players motivated for this. And if it does make you feel any better, Eugene, I believe Ramadan will be over long by then. So you should see Sarr and Basuma fighting fit and back back at their best, and how they play up against Declan Rice and company will be interesting. I know that Arteta. The big problem I have with Arteta is that he thinks himself too clever for his own good. When something works out of serendipity, he tries it again, and it has to, completely fall flat for him to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I was completely wrong. He started Jorginho in recent games because of the Brazilian-Italian's ability to find a good pass. But I just don't think that bloke has got the legs anymore. And the fact that he's not even involved for Italy of late, if I'm not mistaken, pretty much speaks volumes to me. And Arteta has to be humble enough to abandon his, weird ideas, for want of a nicer word. I want to be respectful to you and His Majesty, and just think of a formation which would suit the team, and not his own ego. And that's the big problem that we have. He's got all of the ego of a Guardiola or a Mourinho, but none of the silverware in comparison to those legends of the game. He is, of course, as we would say back in England, and Arthur will know this, a legend in his own lunchtime.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So,
but guys,
So we need to prove our credentials and win. But if we fail, you will have deserved to have taken points off us, and that will be our title challenge over. Hope that answers your question.
Okay. Since Jordan has left, right? So the other game that we were supposed to be part of the Kingmaker group, the scenario is that we were supposed to play Liverpool too. But since Jordan is not here, I'm not sure whether any of you guys have any thoughts for the Liverpool game, because there'll be a 4th of May. It's quite far off. At the moment, like, I guess for me is that we'll see what happens along the way, because Liverpool Liverpool still has to play. I'm not sure if they have to play Aston Villa and a few more games along the way, being still in the Europa League and all that. But as I see it, I guess while we get closer to that point of time, maybe we'll get a clearer picture of what's happening even between Arsenal and us, right? Because we don't know what kind of injuries will come and play into the game and all that. Because it's crunch time in the end of the season. Most of the players are at their brink. So let's see what happens there. Guys, any last thoughts?
Only that I think it's going to be one hell of a battle because Liverpool want to get their own back for when we beat them at White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
So it's revenge, yeah. But there again, it depends. As Manny said, if Ange gets the red hot poker out and winds Spurs up, then we could have one hell of a battle. Well, don't forget we haven't won up there for a long time.
Yeah. And we have to play MCT too, right? Away. So
yeah.
Sorry, we're playing MCT at home, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, at the Lane.
Yeah, we're gonna play them at the Lane. So that's Spurs being the kingmaker. But we'll go more in depth into that in the following weeks to come. Sure. Guys, any last thoughts, Chang, Manny?
For the Liverpool game, I would again gladly take a draw now. I think that's even going to be a big stretch given how Liverpool have been able to just win or at least get a result by hook or by crook in the past couple of weeks and months leading up to where they are now. Still very much in the frame for a fitting farewell for Klopp, shall we say. So I would gladly take a point now, even before the kickoff whistle, and anything more than a points away at Merseyside against Liverpool would be nothing short of a miracle. That's how I see it. That's just how, I mean, that's based on current form. I mean, it still is it's a month and a half away from now. It's May. We're still into March. So anything can happen between now and until May. But I gladly take a point now. And if we can avoid a pasting, I'd really appreciate it. But that clean sheet is looking slimmer and slimmer by the growing weeks. So I don't know. Hopefully,
by then VDV will be back, right? So yeah, that'll be a good thing. Yeah,
provided we don't lose Romero.
No, we lose Romero. We got Dragozin to cover Romero, right? So hopefully that will add up properly. But guys, thanks for being on.
I will say one thing. Liverpool will be looking for revenge because obviously the circumstances surrounding that game at the Tottenham Stadium are still very fresh in their minds. Yeah. 2 players sent off, and it still took an own goal with the last kick of the game for Tottenham to get all 3 points. Klopp will fire his boys up. They're already fired up knowing that it's Klopp's last season. All I can say is you boys need a prayer and more.
That's true. And that's true, right? We never do well in Anfield. I don't know why, It's like when we reach there, right? Everybody just forgets how to play football for whatever reason. But let's hope we give them a fight. Like Chang says, right? It's far, far away from now. I mean, in football times frame, right? 1.5 months could be like 10 years for us, and the injury might pile up for us, or injuries might pile up for Liverpool. But Liverpool, usually when they have the injuries, they prove that they do have the youngsters to come up to step in to bring the game up, and it's at Anfield. So I guess it is what it is. Let's see. Hopefully Spurs will put up a good fight. We have good lineup to give that good fight, right? We don't want to end up playing, a backline of like Ben Davies, Emerson Royale, and I don't even want to go there. But let's hope we get a good team out there to give them a good fight.
As the great man said, we will wait and see.
That's a good one. But guys, let me give a shout out to the guys in the chats, right? Rob Belcher, thank you for being here. Jose, right? Hope you're doing well, Jose. I think you've got a show coming up soon, right? Jordan, we have to get Jordan's channel. M Tamizi, Scott M, guys, and of course Miss Melina. And guys, I'll be doing a F1 watch along this coming Sunday. It will be 12 p.m. I will start off at around 11:45 a.m. Malaysian time. I guess it'll be very weird for the European side because they'll be early in the morning. For the Americans, at least they can still join us, right? Hopefully along the way. But guys, thanks for being on. I'll catch up with you guys in the back room while I end the show. Thanks for being here, guys. Big up. And as always,
Levy out, as always, Levy out.
Levy
and
out.
as always, Levy out. Oh, thanks, guys. Chang had to run. I don't know where Chang is at the moment, actually. So later I'll give him a call. He's doing something weird there.